We all have that moment when we see our towns get mentioned on the news, because very often it'll be a good thing, it'll be a positive thing, sometimes not so positive. But in the case of Barnsley, we've had a lot of negative, shall we say, responses. I want to say that the best way possible. So last year, literally the morning of the results of the referendum, Channel 4 came to Barnsley. And, well, put it this way, that has been my largest piece of evidence against any Brexiteer that says that the referendum wasn't about immigration or had anything to do with racism. Because, well, as one guy put it, immigration. It was all about immigration. Now we're out, we can send them back. And that was the first time. And literally last Friday the 13th, ironically. So, yeah, Channel 4 returned once again, and it was Barnsley's unlucky Friday once again, because they were asking that all-important question again, what do you think about the EU? And as usual, somehow, I don't know how they managed to do it, but the camera, if you put a camera in Barnsley, it brings out the absolute worst people ever, and it will be to no one's surprise that all the questions were about how we should just leave the EU, which we've gone over many times on this channel just how bad that would be, and of course about immigration. Now, as I've said many times before, immigration is not an issue. The total population percentage that immigrants make up of the UK is 5%. That's nothing. That is absolutely nothing in terms of population in the UK. It is nothing. And if you look at Barnsley, I'd say you're looking at the immigrant population of Barnsley is probably less than 1%. And yet, the people of Barnsley have constantly been told that its immigration is the source of all their problems. And, they constantly read, in the newspaper, particularly The Sun, The Express, Daily Mail, The Telegraph, which are, not surprisingly, the most popular papers in Barnsley, all constantly rail against immigrants and will pounce on any story where an immigrant has done something wrong, and of course them being an immigrant is the big story. So where does this leave us? Well, the first thing I want to say, because I want to try and first of all defend Barnsley, that people in Barnsley are not as bad as certainly the two Channel 4, shall we say, interviews, particularly the most recent one, makes it out to be. In fact, if you actually talk to people in Barnsley and you actually show them the benefits of what the EU has done for them, what it has done for the town, the benefits that is brought, for example, the one I always bring up is there is an EU programme which gives people a grant of money that they don't have to pay back to be able to start their own businesses. This programme has started over 600 plus businesses in the borough. And yet, I was told by Nigel Farage on LBC that this was a bad idea. 600 businesses is quite a lot in this area, and those people now running those businesses, they are now they are not unemployed, which is good. They are now going on, some of these businesses now going on, growing to be able to hire more people, which is, again, good for the local economy. But, of course, you get the usual catch-22, which is people are so fixated on immigrants and them being, you know, the be-all, end-all for, you know, for this entire talk. I've talked about it before. You get, you know, YouTubers like David Cullen who seize upon any immigration story that appears, or if an immigrant does something the slightest bit wrong, see, it is just the end of the British way of life as you know it. And it's just like, oh. I mean, he's not even from Barnsley, but, you know, it's the closest thing I can think of to someone like that, because that's the attitude. But when, again, just like Cullen, when he's presented with the actual facts, he doesn't care, unfortunately, because as far as he is concerned, you know, immigration is, you know, it's Armageddon. It's the end of the world. And that's the problem we've got to try and actually face in Barnsley, and particularly anybody from the Leave, the Remain campaign needs to focus on, is we need to start, you know, countering this anti-immigration message that has been around, has been perpetrated in the press for years. You know, I did a video last week about this, about, you know, how the right-wing ideas have infiltrated, you know, mainstream politics, particularly anti-immigration ones. I mean, I've talked about in that one, particularly the Daily Mail. Their columnists would continuously jump on about how asylum seekers are the absolute worst, and, you know, immigrants are nothing but, you know, dirty scroungers. This is something that they have published since the 90s, and yet when you get example organisations like the BNP, who are openly racist, basically they just go, oh no, we can't stand that, because it's what I like to call soft racism. It's not racism if you don't use, you know, certain words, and, you know, then you can get away with it. So it's hard. It really is hard, and, you know, Barnsley is not as bad as it may, you know, as people often make it out to be. It's a good town. There's a lot going for it, certainly. And, you know, I have an open invitation to Sargon of Akkad, the guy who said that Brexit would be an absolutely amazing idea, to come to Barnsley, and I will show you all the benefits that the EU has given Barnsley. I will give you a personal tour of the place. And, you know, if any other YouTuber wants to do that, come on down. You know, we have excellent car and rail links in Barnsley. It's, again, something that the EU has given us, but, you know. But you have, you know, come on down, and we'll sit in a pub, we'll have a talk. Remain versus, you know, Leave. Or if you are someone who is Remain and you want to come here and you want to see Barnsley, I'll gladly do that as well. I will sit down and I'll tell you the exact consequences of what leaving the EU for Barnsley is going to mean. So I'm open to those conversations if anyone wants to have them. We've got some awesome real ale pubs in Barnsley, you know, particularly the Oldham 7 and the Arcade Ale House. So, you know, come on down, as it were. Barnsley's not all grim up north, as they say. So, yeah. If anyone's up for a visit, you know, come on down. You know, leave a comment below. You know, I'm sure we can sort something out.